Hey everybody, Xbox DIY here. Today's video is going to show you how to properly paint your Xbox One controller. When painting an Xbox One controller, it's actually fairly straightforward. Unfortunately on the web, again, there's some unclear tutorials and things that don't really help you. The most important part is the prep and the final coat. The paint is somewhat irrelevant and pretty easy to do, and you're going to see all about that here in just a minute. Just a quick few disclaimers before getting started. If you're under the age of 18, make sure you get some adult supervision. If you're over the age of 18, please still be careful. Paint is very, very harmful to inhale. It can get on things. Please be careful. Work in a well-ventilated area. Make sure you cover your clothes, your table, all those types of things, and we'll talk about that here in a second. I am going to be giving away this Xbox One controller shell, so check out in the description below how you can try to get your hands on this 100% free for one lucky subscriber. Looking forward to all the comments, suggestions, and pictures and experiences of your own. Paint your own Xbox One controller, and we'll see you at the end of the video. Alright, before we get started, what I'd like to do is show you a very, very poorly executed attempt at painting an Xbox One controller. And what I did here was quite literally take this thing apart, lay it down on the ground, spray gold spray paint over it, and that's it. And as you can see, basically anywhere where your hand touched, there was some type of moisture or heat, the paint came off. So I might even have a little bit on my hands now, but had gold paint absolutely everywhere. And this is exactly what you don't want to do. So let's go ahead and get to the right way to paint an Xbox One controller. All right, next what we'll do is go through the supplies that you're going to need to paint your Xbox One controller. So always start with the kind of, cleanup or the auxiliary supplies that you need. So always important to get a pair of gloves so you don't get any of this paint or material on your hands. A lot of this stuff is permanent, so you want to be careful with that. On top of that, we're going to want to have some type of canvas drop cloth that we're going to put over top of the table to keep the table protected. You're also going to want some type of paint sanding respirator, way to keep particles out of your lungs. And next, we're going to want a final stripping pad, and this is what you're going to be using to kind of get the controller prepped and ready to have paint applied onto. All right, for the paint, we're going to first start with the very first thing you're going to use. And this is something that you can't always find everywhere. You can find it on Amazon, I know for sure. I've got a link in the description below. But this is kind of a hit or miss sometimes. So if you can get it, I'd recommend it. If not, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's an adhesion promoter, and basically you're going to use this after we sand or kind of, finish or scuff the controller. And that'll help with anything that comes after that. You're going to definitely want a primer as well. So for a primer here, we've got a white plastic primer from Valspar. See, as you can see, works with wood, metal, wicker, plastic, and more. And you're going to use a white primer if you have a lighter color that you'd like to put on your controller. You can use a black primer if you have a darker color, but really, like I said, I just recommend white. It just makes things easier, and then that way you can tell if you've actually covered up the black or not. Next is the paint. So the paint is really kind of a moot point. I would highly recommend getting some type of paint that's recommended for plastic, but really because the prep and the finish are the most important parts, it doesn't really matter what type of paint you get. So I went with a flat blue here. Blue is my favorite color, so I'm really excited to see how this turns out. Last but not least, a crystal clear enamel. I'd recommend this one from Rust-Oleum. Seems to work pretty well. And what this will do is provide a finish to the paint and make sure that, grease, dirt, dust, all those kinds of things stay off of the paint and that your controller stays really nice and finished. So now that you understand what you need, let's go ahead and get set up and get started. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and get the controller down to just the outer shell. And I'm not going to show you guys how to do that because I have plenty of other videos on how to tear down an Xbox One controller, like I said before, but this is what you need to get it down to. And you guys have probably watched me abuse this controller enough over the last couple years, so we don't need any more of that. What you're gonna do first, after you've got it broken down, is you're gonna just go ahead and take all these parts And we're gonna go ahead and head over to the sink, and you're just gonna clean all these things with soap and water just to get as much surface stuff off as you can. So step one, clean this with soap and water. We'll be right back. All right, now that you have everything cleaned with soap and water very thoroughly, the next thing that we're going to do is start to scuff the controller to get it ready for the adhesion promoter, the primer, the paint, and the clear coat. So this is where things might get a little bit messy, especially if you have this horribly executed paint job on this last controller, and flakes might start going everywhere. So I would highly recommend getting your disposable gloves, and also at the same time probably your respirator as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these out and grab 2 pairs of these and put these on. And then what we're gonna do is gonna go ahead and grab these final stripping pads, and I think these are actually reusable, which are pretty cool. Yeah, just rinse and reuse, which is pretty awesome. So you only have to buy these once, which is really neat. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna basically just wanna start taking the scuff pad on a controller and doing exactly what I mentioned, is scuffing it, right? And what you're doing here is you're kind of pulling away, you know, any final coating or anything like that. And as you can see, this gold paint's actually gonna start to come off. And what that'll allow you to do is apply the plastic promoter, or adhesion promoter, excuse me, and any of the other surfaces. So this kind of makes it like sticky in a sense. So let's go ahead and finish scuffing this controller, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. As you can see, when we're done with the first one, it's looking a little bit better and a lot less smooth than this the second panel right here. So we're doing the job. We're gonna keep doing this, and then we'll finish up the rest of it. Just a quick reminder here, make sure you get every single area that is going to be coated with paint. It's absolutely critical that we don't miss any of this. All right, and as you can see here, everything looks very dull and very rough, which is exactly what we want. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually go ahead and next take one final pass over with an alcohol pad, and it's just a lens cleaning wipe. I actually have one right here. What this is gonna do is just, you know, take everything off of it and make sure that this thing is 100% ready to go for the plastic adhesion promoter. So I know this sounds like it's a lot of time and effort just to do all this cleaning, but it's absolutely critical. And the prep and the finish, where we're gonna go ahead and put the clear coat on, are by far the 2 most important parts. Go ahead and take a alcohol wipe to this just to be sure that everything is off. And this is really nice too, because alcohol, ethanol, whatever you're using in here will actually evaporate at room temperature. And so everything will come off and be nice and squeaky clean after you do this. I'm surprised. I bet you a lot of paint's gonna come off here. Oh, maybe not. Okay, well, anyway, we're just cleaning this thing up, making sure that it's good to go. No oils from your hands or the scuff pad or anything else is on here. And then we'll be ready to apply the plastic adhesion promoter, whatever the heck that thing is. All right, now that everything's clean and ready to go, what we're gonna do is go ahead and move on to applying the plastic adhesion promoter. So let's move on to the next step. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is apply the adhesion promoter, and what you're gonna wanna do here is, just single out one of these pieces. So for example, let's grab one of the panels just to start. We'll go ahead and move this other stuff away. We're gonna go ahead and put this down, and what you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and shake this pretty vigorously for about 10 seconds. Once you shake that up, I'm gonna take this off and just make sure that this thing is ready to go. and you're just gonna go with short bursts across the plastic, about 8 to 10 inches above the piece of plastic. And we're just gonna go ahead and do this. Yeah, so you don't need much for these pieces. So go ahead and take that off. And we're gonna move on to this piece. Make sure that's fully covered. Short bursts, remember, keep it shaking. Oh, missed a little bit. There we go. And on to the last piece. All right, we're gonna let this dry for about 10 minutes and we'll come back to the next step. All right, hopefully everything went pretty well with the plastic adhesion promoter. You've let this dry for about 10 minutes. Just a quick reminder, make sure you're in a ventilated area. If you are doing it indoors, make sure you get like a fan and a window open or something like that. This stuff's really powerful, so you don't want to inhale any of it. So next what we're gonna do is grab this Valspar Project Perfect primer. It's gonna be white, and we're basically gonna do the same thing. So like I said, make sure this is dry, but don't wait too long. I think there's some reason why they tell you to only wait like 10 or 15 minutes to apply the next coat, probably so it works properly. And I lied last time, you actually have to shake this for about a minute, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. All right, so once your paint's all mixed up and ready to go, you're gonna do the exact same thing. We'll move these parts to the side, and we'll just go ahead and apply this primer coat. And we're gonna wanna make sure that this is covered evenly, because this is gonna not only cover up the gold paint, or in most cases the black plastic that I think is painted or colored or something, I don't know, but it's going to also prep the surface for what's coming next. So let's go ahead and do this, same thing. Short, even strokes, about 8 to 10 inches away. Look at that, nice and covered. Make sure it's all covered. You don't want to have too much going on, just because you don't want anything dripping, and be very careful when you go to remove this. Actually, I probably shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. So go ahead and move that. Be wary that you might have to cover up a few parts. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to this next one. And actually what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna place these all kind of next to each other so we can kind of do them all in one fell swoop. All right, we're gonna do the same thing again. All right, as you can see, everything's very, very, very well covered. We're gonna let this dry for about 10 minutes. Make sure nothing's dripping. It shouldn't be because of this special paint. And we're gonna come back in about 10 minutes and go ahead and apply the first base layer before the clear coat. So as you can see here, I actually moved this around. What you're gonna wanna do, what I didn't mention earlier, is have all these pieces laid out you know, far enough apart where you can hit every single one of them, because you're not going to be able to pick them up and move them. See what happened here? I'm actually glad that I screwed up for you guys. Screwing up is good sometimes. So I let this dry for 5 minutes, and what we're going to do is we're just going to shake this up again, and we're going to go ahead and apply a second quick layer just to make sure everything is covered up. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the base layer. With that, everything should be very, very, very well covered. And if it isn't, you probably did something wrong. So after you've given your primer about 15 minutes to dry, and really I'd check the back of the can because usually they have directions on there for how long you should wait before applying another layer. What we're gonna do is the fun part. And this is actually painting your controller the color you'd like it to be. So, like I said, I went with a flat wood metal wicker and more Valspar Project Perfect paint and primer. It's not a big deal if the primer's in there. And I already shook this up for about a minute, so just gonna give it one more quick shake, and we're gonna go ahead and start painting the controller. So same technique, short burst across, don't use a whole lot. Oh, I broke the cap, whatever. And we're just gonna do one coat, and then we're gonna see how it works. And if we need to, we're gonna do a second coat. So about 8 to 10 inches, and we're gonna start painting. Oh, that is a really, really cool blue. I really, really like this already. As you can see, it goes on pretty heavy, so you don't need much. That's even probably a little bit too much. I would do less if you can. Might be actually cool to do a two-tone white and blue, but we're past that already, so we're sticking to the blue. And would you look at that? Unbelievable. This paint is going on so well already. We're gonna let it dry for about 10 minutes. We'll come back and see if we need a second coat. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the final step now. As you can see, this is completely coated. I actually had to go back and touch the side of the controllers up, or the controller up, because just the way that I was spraying it, I was missing some of the edges. So go back, cover up anything that you need to cover up, and let it sit about 15-20 minutes. Better be safe than sorry, and you actually want to be able to, you know, touch it and pick it up, and then you know it's dry. So the last thing that we're going to do here is put on this crystal clear enamel. This is going to really, really make the controller shine. It's going to protect the paint from the grease on your hands. It's going to really just, you know, seal it and finish the controller and make it really, really pop. And this is the, you know, the prep that we did earlier and the coating at the end, the clear coat, is going to be really the difference in just an average controller painting job or a very, very good one. So you're gonna want to go ahead and shake this up for, you know, a minute again, and then we'll go ahead and get started on this. So once you're ready to start applying the enamel, this is going to be a little bit of a different technique. What you're going to want to do is like 2 to 3 very, very, very light layers on here, and then once we're done, we're going to let this dry for 30 minutes to an hour. This is absolutely critical that no dust gets on there, you don't touch it or anything, because this is the finish. So this is, you know, really the most important part along with the prep. So I already shook this up. Just gonna make sure it's good to go, and we're gonna do same technique, 8 to 10 inches above, light, short bursts, and then we're gonna, you know, let it sit for a minute and see how it turns out. It's going on very nicely, as you can see. And this is going to give the controller that shine and that protection that you're looking for. It's really a professional finish. So as you can see, this is all pretty much taken care of. Very, very easy. We're going to let this sit for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we're going to come back and do another quick coat. We're back after a few minutes, and what we're going to do is just apply one more very thin, light layer of this enamel, clear coat, whatever you want to call it, to the top of the controller. And this is really going to seal the deal. So let's do one more layer here. And the key here is that you actually do want to do this about a few minutes apart instead of waiting too long. I don't know why, to be honest, just because it says so on the back of the can. So this actually gets a lot easier the more and more you do it too. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking at first because you're like, oh, I'm going to screw up, but honestly, it's not that bad. This spray stuff works really well, spray paint. So as you can see, this looks really, really good. It's prepped properly, it's covered with primer, it's got the adhesion promoter to make everything stick better, it's got some great paint, and finally a fantastic clear coat over the top. It's looking nice and shiny. This is all it takes, ladies and gentlemen, so don't be afraid to do this yourself. I'd really, really, really like to see some people attempt to do this. Again, if you're under the age of 18, please make sure you get a parent's help. Use ventilated areas, be safe and smart, and all that good kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make you guys go over to Xbox DIY to see the final product of the controller put all together again. And last but not least, I'm actually going to be giving this away to one lucky subscriber. So take a look in the description below. I'll show you how you can get your hands on this controller. And thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks for watching. And this has been another production by Xbox DIY.